Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! So, a few years back during the boom of those weirdly specific t-shirts on Facebook, I operated a design agency. My clients were people selling those shirts, and I had a couple designers in my company along with a huge pool of potential hires. One guy selling thousands of shirts hired my agency. We did some designs for him, and since I was stupid, I accepted to be paid after the work was delivered. Surprise, surprise, he didn't pay me and left me $500 in the hole. I was angry, but I moved on since I had a lot of work already. A few days later, I got his email asking if I was interested in designing shirts. This idiot CC'd me in the email along with some other designers. Since I had an agency, I recognized most of those designers because I had a huge pool of people I could potentially hire. I hatched a plan. He hired 3 separate designers. I know them because I still had access to his shared Dropbox folder, and I recognized those designers' names from my pool of potential hires. I waited a week and then sent those 3 designers an email offering them a higher pay. They left that client. Now the client had no designers and was desperate. So he hired me back and gave me $500 along with a 10% commission of shirt sales on Teespring that will pass 1,000 units. I put that provision in so that I could know what his winning shirts were. What I started doing was that I would use copyrighted vectors in the design and would upload the design on Teespring before sending them the design. Slowly I learned which designs were the winners based on the commission. This is when I struck. I partnered with the original artist about the copyright infringement to report those designs to Teespring and pointed Teespring to the original campaigns I uploaded. Teespring returned all the profit made off of those designs to the original artists, and I got a sweet $10,000 from it all from the original artist as a courtesy. Once the mission was accomplished, I posted the scammer details in every group forum and the site rip-off report so that he couldn't hire the next designers easily. You just don't mess with a man and his pay. So I'm 16. I got my first job at a store as a cashier / the person who looks over self-checkout. This was during the summer. Typically our store isn't that busy. So in the mornings when I worked, they would just have me watch the 4 self-checkout lanes that we had and no one was cashiering. This would make some people mad, but one in particular angry. So my coworker was just about to clock in soon. She typically stood behind the guest service desk for about 10 minutes and just talked to our manager, as our manager was one of the coolest managers you could have. We were open for no more than an hour and a half, and I was helping this older woman who didn't know how to use the self-checkout lanes. And here comes the entitled mother. "Excuse me," clearly talking to me. Just one moment. I finish up helping the customer and start to say have a nice day when the entitled mother comes speeding at me. She's now right in front of me. "Excuse me." "Yes, hello. What can I help you with?" "I need you to tell a cashier to get here." "Our cashier gets here soon." "Well then I guess you're taking me over there to check me out." Pointing towards one of the cash registers. "I can't do that." "You have legs, so walk." "I'm required to stay over here in my work area." "Customers are always right. Don't they teach you this?" "I have to stay." Before I could even finish, she grabs my arm and starts to drag me. "Let me teach you young people how to cashier." Me resisting. "I know how to do my job, let go." The manager walks out from behind the customer service wall where all the online orders and things people didn't want are, as this got the attention of my manager and my co-worker. "Let's go." "Manager!" The manager walking up at a faster pace now. "Hey, how can I help you?" I tell him, "This customer would like a cashier." "Don't speak, child," he says. Okay, calm down. How can I help you?" "This brat was refusing to let me buy my items. He assaulted me and told me to get lost." The manager looks at me with almost a smirk. "How can I help?" I would like him to open a cash register and let me purchase my items without grabbing me inappropriately. The manager gives me a tiny smile so that the entitled mother doesn't see it, and he tells me, "Hey, go up to the front," pointing to the customer service area. Alright, I do, which is only about 10 feet away. The manager calls on her walkie for someone. "Ma'am, I got a backup cashier coming." "Okay, and I would like to press charges." "Sure thing." The manager looks at me and winks, and the security guard walks in. "You need backup?" The manager tells him, "No, just take this lady out for assaulting one of ours." The security guard grabs her and walks out the front door. Then the entitled woman starts screaming some insults. The manager walks up to me and says, "Dude, stop assaulting customers." Obviously joking, then points me to go back to the self-checkout area. "Do your job, kid." Laughing the entire time. The entitled woman had a scream fest outside saying how me was a dead kid, that she knows where I live and everything. Whole lot of threatening. A security guard drags her to the office where the cops are called, and then they ask me if I want to press charges, which I happily did. I was a head lifeguard at a water park for 4 years, so I have definitely seen my fair share of entitled parents. But one entitled mother almost let her kid drown because of it. At the park I work at, we have a bunch of slides, a wave pool, and a one regular swimming pool that has these little plastic water slides that empty into it, that we also use for training. The shallow end is about 3 feet and the deep end is 10. But the water slides empty into the 4 to 5 feet end. A lot of people underestimate the depths, mostly parents and young children, and find themselves having to swim back to the wall instead of standing. I'm only 5'2", so even I still have to swim from that slide. Because of the depths, we require everyone under 4'8" to wear a life jacket no matter where they are in the pool. It's a state law. As you can imagine, a lot of parents aren't happy with this. And though we have free life jackets as a courtesy, on very busy days we run out. But our biggest issues come from the parents who are convinced their child is the next Michael Phelps. On this particular day it was fairly busy and I'd enlisted a couple of my lifeguards to look for life jackets that were left in the cabanas, bathrooms and so on instead of hanging back up. A little kid came running to the pool and I noticed his height. About 2 inches too short. Poor little guy. "Hey buddy, I am so sorry, but you can't swim in this pool without a life jacket." The entitled mother walking up behind him. "Oh, it's alright, he can swim." Unfortunately, because of the state law, I can't let him in the water without a life jacket. "He's on the swim team. He's perfectly fine." "I'm sorry, ma'am. It's not our rule. It's the law." She rolls her eyes and huffs off, but manages to find her kid a life jacket. So I take my eyes off of them and make more attention to my zone. Regular irritated parent, no big deal. Fast forward about 10 minutes and I see this kid climb up the slide. It's the child. So I whistle at him and take him to his mother and again say, "Ma'am, I understand he can probably swim, but he cannot go down the slide or go in the pool without a life jacket." "Absolutely not. I am not putting that death trap back on my child." "I understand, but..." "He can swim perfectly fine. He's on a swim team. He's fine." Me beginning to get irritated. "I legally cannot let your child touch that water if he does not have a life jacket on." "No, it was choking him. I will not have my child choking and dying. Goodbye." I almost cracked up, but she'd walked off, dragging her kid with her. So I rolled my eyes and didn't think anything of it. Every 20 to 30 minutes, we rotate positions as lifeguards to keep our eyes fresh and our energy up. So our lovely entitled mother decided to wait until we rotated to try and bring her child back. Unfortunately for her, I just moved to the other side of the pool. About 10 minutes into the rotation, I noticed a distressed swimmer. Swimming but clearly struggling and barely moving. It's the stage before active drowning. He was about 5 feet from the slide. I whistle, jump in, yank the swimmer onto my tube, and lo and behold, it's the same child. Now I am mad, but not as mad as the entitled mother. She's sitting in a lounge chair on the side of the pool, not paying attention at all. Side note for parents: lifeguards are not your babysitters. I help the kid out and drag him to his mother. Ma'am, this is the third time I have tried to talk to you. Your child almost drowned in the pool because he... The entitled mother, horrified: Did you just touch my child? I rescued your child. I did not give you permission to save my child. You have no right to touch him. You should have asked me first before just grabbing him like that. I did not see you anywhere. You were not watching your kid. So I had to make a decision. Yes, I was. He was swimming fine. How dare you save him just to prove your point? Just admit you're on a little lifeguard power trip. I want to speak to your supervisor. I love when people want to speak to a supervisor because at this water park, they are almost always on the lifeguard side. So my supervisor comes over. This lifeguard won't let my child swim in the pool. She gave him a life jacket that was choking him and then dragged him out of the pool without my permission. The supervisor tells her, Your child is too short. But he's on a swim team. If he can't swim, he shouldn't have to wear one. Now, I've been having the same conversation over and over for about 45 minutes at this point. My supervisor asked her to give him a minute and move to the side to talk to me. Sometimes, if the children are near the correct height, we let them swim if there are no adequate life jackets and they seem like strong swimmers, and have a reliable adult with them. So my supervisor decided to extend this privilege to the entitled mother. Thank you. I can't believe it took this long for you to see sense. I hope she gets written up at the very least for ruining my son's day. She was doing her job, but I'm sorry it made things difficult for you. The entitled mother goes back to chatting with her friends, and her son runs happily back to the slides, where he nearly drowned once already, and he slides down it. And sure enough, he starts drowning. But I'm not allowed to rescue her son because he can swim, right? He's on a swim team. He's great. I'm actually about to jump in when my supervisor stops me and gets the mom's attention. Ma'am, your son is drowning, he tells her. The entitled mother rolling her eyes and walking over to the edge of the pool and says, He's not. He's swimming fine. By this point, the son has moved from distressed swimming to active drowning. His mouth is popping up and down over the water. His eyes are wide, arms desperately grabbing for something, but he isn't moving anywhere. And no, none of the other patrons noticed because they were all doing their own thing. And drowning is very quiet and uneventful. Now I'm getting antsy. I don't want a kid drowning on my watch, even if I don't have permission from the parent to rescue them. The entitled mother's friend comes over to see what's going on, gets wide-eyed and gasps, and the entitled mother falls into hysterics. What are you doing? Don't just stand there. Do something to save him. Despite my anger, I need no second bidding. I jump in, grab the poor kid for a second time, and pull him out. The supervisor says, Please put a life jacket on him next time, or take him to the children's area where he can swim wherever he likes without one. Didn't even say thank you, just shot me a dirty look, signed the incident report, and hauled her shivering child away. She was also banned from ever coming back here. Edit. Some people are doubting the legitimacy of this story, which, fair, if someone is doing something illegal and life-threatening, law enforcement should be called. That being said, on a day when our relatively small water park is filled with 6,000 people, situations like this end up being the least of our concerns. As upsetting as it is, it was handled. The child was saved the entire time. He struggled for a bit, but he took in no water. He didn't slip below the surface of the water, and we sent him to a medic just to be safe. I've seen dozens of supervisors, lifeguards, and swim teachers do very similar things. If I kicked someone out of the park, which I cannot do, a supervisor or my manager has to do, every time they endangered someone or even did something illegal and endangering, I wouldn't have time to actually ensure people don't drown. As crazy as that sounds. Another edit. I just wanted to clear up a couple more things. Legally, I had no right to jump in a second time if the parent told me no. It's similar to refusing medical assistance at a hospital. A lot of people are thinking I didn't jump because the parent was being rude and I was being petty. But I didn't jump because 1. My supervisor told me not to, and 2. I was legally obligated not to. If I had jumped without the parents' permission, she could have sued the park and could have won. It's dumb, I agree, but we are technically following the law. I saved her child once, and then she explicitly told him not to save him again. And for the record, regardless of the law, I would have saved the child anyway if it got to a certain point and the entitled mother still hadn't given us permission. I don't care if my park gets sued, or has to shut down, or I never get another job. I don't want someone's death on my hands. This was a few years ago, but it still brings me joy to this day. My husband and I were waiting for our mobile order, and the line was out of the door due to a parade or school event nearby. The poor girls behind the counter were understaffed or someone was on their break when this Karen walked in. She's definitely too old to be rocking the hand solo look, boots, leggings, and puffy vest. She also has a mobile order she's keen on destroying all in her path to obtain. It helps to know that this is when mobile ordering was getting way more popular in my area. Karen walks in and heads directly to the mobile pickup area. Coffee app pulled up on her phone and flags down a barista by yelling, "Excuse me, I ordered my coffee 22 minutes ago. Where are they?" "I'm sorry ma'am, what's the name of your order?" Karen, pointing to her phone screen, says, "I have a venti blah 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 extra shots of blah 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 with 7 pumps of gigantic blah." Sorry, I can't remember the 3 drinks she ordered. I don't understand why it's taking you guys so long. This is ridiculous. It's only 3 drinks. "I'm sorry ma'am, but I'll check on them. We have a lot of customers." Karen interrupts the barista. "I ordered more than 20 minutes ago. Where are my drinks?" The barista turned around to try and find this horrible woman her drinks, and I had absolutely enough of her nonsense. Me interrupting Karen's rant, "Excuse me, but don't you see the line out the door? Don't you notice that there is only one poor girl taking orders and another making coffee? They are obviously understaffed at this moment, and your attitude is not helping anyone's day. You need to cut these poor girls some slack. Their jobs are demanding and not easy, especially when people like you yell at them for no good reason." Karen turns to me, mouth wide open, in absolute shock that anyone would ever speak to her this way. She just stares at me for a few seconds until the barista comes back and calls her name to give her 2 of the 3 coffees she ordered. "I'll put these in the car." Karen explains that she's still waiting for a 3rd beverage. The barista mouthed, "Thank you," silently to me. Karen comes back in and retrieves her final coffee, staring daggers at me the entire time. She left with her deflated ego and overpriced coffees. The barista brought up our coffees shortly after and thanked me again. I told her that they never deserved to be treated like this, and that it was so ridiculous that I couldn't sit by and watch it any longer. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. "There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only." Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. "I'm leaving." After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using therein. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. "Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay?" I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. "Yes, I'm inviting my father." "That's great. I might invite my parents too." I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.